Today, I think I'm ready to run in Nike shoes again. .37 miles, 8 minutes, 47 seconds per mile, 140 beats per minute today. Going for a run in a pair of Nike shoes for the first time in a very long time. And I think probably only the second time since last November. To give a little bit of context on that, I used to be kind of like the biggest fanboy of Nike products. And then a lot of stories kind of came to light all kind of around the same time. And it made me really rethink what it means to kind of wear a shoe, to support a brand, to wear a shirt that has the logo on it, all that kind of stuff. I've talked about it ad nauseum in other videos. I'll post links in the description if you kind of want to know more about kind of that whole part of the journey. But today what I want to focus about is kind of going forward, running in Nike shoes again, and how I feel about that. I've kind of like forecasted that I'm ready to make this return. Not that it's like this big thing, but people have been asking me about it, and I've been talking about it in some of the live streams that I've been doing lately. And some of you have asked like the very like appropriate question of, well, what's changed that I can still be upset at that company in January, but now in April or May of 2020, like suddenly be okay with it? And I would say that like not a lot has changed, but at the same time, everything has changed. So in terms of like kind of what's changed, I think the biggest piece of news and directly related to the things that I was kind of upset about or had problems with was that Alex Morgan was able to renew her contract with Nike. She's a female soccer player, and that new contract gave her significant maternity leave protections. For an 18-month period, her pay couldn't be reduced, cut, or in any way affected while she had her baby and had her maternity leave. So I thought that was fantastic. I always thought that, you know, one of the things that Nike has due to its power and clout and market share is that it has the ability to set norms if it wants to. And I think that was the norm previously, that or just was how all contracts were written, that, you know, there were these significant, basically financial penalties for women for having babies. And now hopefully this becomes a part of a new set of cultural understandings and norms, and just part of the way that we treat other people is that for professional athlete contracts that they don't get penalized for having families. So I thought that was great. And then the world changed. Everything changed. Everything got canceled, postponed, and moved. And so and that's just how it affected sports. There were much more serious ramifications worldwide on a global species level. In response to that, Nike has done some significant things. And I'll kind of put it into three buckets. I'll try to organize this the best I can, but trying to, there's a lot of kind of like things going on here. So the first kind of bucket, I think, is from the Nike executives. So Phil Knight, who is like executive chairman emeritus in his retired state. Mark Parker, who I'm not the biggest fan of, but who's the executive chairman. And then the current CEO, Between the three of them, they donated a total of $10 million of their own money to a couple of things. The Oregon Food Bank, which I think was really important. Donating to a food bank is something that my wife and I decided that we would do when everything kind of hit. Thinking that like people are losing their jobs, people are losing the ability to provide food and put food on their own tables. And I think the food banks were going to get hit really hard. And so that's something that we thought was really important to support. And it's good to see that they did the same thing in Oregon. They also donated to like an Oregon Recovery Fund, which I think was kind of the same idea as like supporting the food banks that are suddenly going to get hit with a surge of new demand, but also just a variety of other recovery and relief efforts to help mitigate some of the impacts of everything that's happened. And they also donated part of that money to the OHSU, which is the health services, the hospital system that's in the region where Nike is based. The second kind of bucket of thing that Nike's done is through the Nike Foundation, which I think is their charitable arm, where they've donated about a total of about $4 million to a variety of different recovery funds in the local area, but also to the Solidarity Response Fund, which I think is more like the same recovery relief efforts kind of idea, but this program is run by the UN. They also donated to food banks in Memphis, which I believe is their North American logistics hub, and also to Boston, which there's something else that goes on in Boston that Nike has a footprint there. I'm not like weirdly opaquely referring to the marathon either. I think that there's something else that's based out of Boston Converse is based out of there. And they are donated £1 million to community partners that were responding to relief efforts in Europe, Africa, and the Middle East. And then the Nike company itself also has been very active in responding and coming to provide support. And they've done it in a couple of ways. And one of the ways that they did it was very early on is they reconfigured some of their production capabilities to provide PPE. Now, I don't know if you guys, it's so easy to forget already, but very early on, there were these very substantial shortages in PPE because a lot of that was coming from China that was on 100% complete lockdown at the time. And so it was just a mad scramble to get even the most basic, those like paper masks. I don't know that we're still even to the point where everyone has enough, but it was like horror stories in the beginning. And Nike reconfigured some of their production to make it, realizing that a lot of the materials that go into like the face shields and things like that are the same materials that they use to make shoes. And so they were able to do that, and they donated over 290,000 pieces of PPE to OHSU, the Oregon Health System, as well as hospital systems in Boston, Memphis, and St. Louis. They also donated 250,000 of those paper masks to the state of New York, which is the state that was probably the most hard hit in the United States in terms of not only number of cases, but also some of those PPE shortages. So that was something that they did very early on. To further support healthcare workers, they also donated 32,500 units of the Nike Pulse, which is a shoe that I wasn't aware of at the time, but it's a shoe that they developed last year specifically for healthcare workers or other people who are on their feet all day. And they donated those to healthcare workers at a value of about $5.5 million. So that was really great to see, to be able to give that to those frontline workers. They also donated $10 million of supplies and equipment that are needed by frontline workers. And that was distributed via the China Youth Development Foundation. The other thing they did was, in addition to helping out healthcare workers and other these recovery and response funds, is they helped just average people like you and me out there, and by trying to give people something to do when they couldn't go to their gyms anymore, but they couldn't go to basketball courts anymore, or they couldn't run on the tracks anymore. And so they made things like Nike Training Club. There's a premium version of it. They took the paywall down so that everyone could have full access to that and do workouts at home in their living room while being apart from other people. And they also really ramped up on their offerings in terms of what was coming from the Nike Run Club. A lot of races were canceled. A lot of workout groups couldn't meet anymore. And so they've been pumping out a lot of content from the Nike Run Club app, that people could still kind of have that sense of running community, which I think has been really important during this time. So they've hit things like on a lot of different levels. But on the other hand, there's still some things that I don't think they've hit very much on in terms of, apart from the COVID response efforts, in terms of the things that, you know, I've had some issue with. But I think that now's like a really hard time to really put their feet to the fire on that one, especially since a lot of those things deal with competition and the way they've been handling sport. But I think that's a concern for another day. One of the things that all this has made me realize is that this isn't going to be like a dance-a-thon or like a telethon where you've got like the graphic that slowly fills up like a thermometer, like fills up, and then you reach the top and it's mission accomplished, and then there's a celebration and confetti rains down. I don't think that's going to be like that. I don't think this kind of bean counting is kind of what it wasn't like a certain number of things that made me angry at the company, and it's not going to be a certain number of things that make me feel like, you know, their penance has been paid. So like, I don't know, but what I do feel is that with everything that's happened is it's a really great time right now to kind of wipe slates clean, forgive and forget. Maybe not forget, but forgive and move on. If those are probably not the right words for it either. Maybe reconcile is a better word. Another thing that I've been seeing is that, I mean, in the political context, we've been getting very polarized, but now even in this very beyond politics level event, we are still remaining very polarized. And I think that, we are seeing what happens when we do that, when we create our echo chambers and silos and boycott each other and just stay separated, is that it never results in bringing people back together. It only results in people further sequestering themselves ideologically. I mean, we should be sequestering ourselves physically right now for a little while longer, but ideologically. And I feel like the only way to cross that bridge and to bring people back together is to be back together. And so I'm not saying that I'm doing some sort of magnanimous thing by running in a pair of shoes again. But I think that to the extent that some of these ideals matter to me, I think the better way to do it is from a place of collaboration rather than from a place of confrontation, if that makes sense. So, I think a lot of you guys are going to think of it three ways. One, some of you are going to be really pissed off that I've sold out or given up or however it's going to get phrased. Some of you guys are going to be super excited. Some of you guys are going to be like, oh, what the heck is this guy even talking about? And all three of you are right. I think that there's a little bit of all of that in this. But I just wanted to give you this update to let you know kind of what's been going on, what I've seen, the things that I think that are notable and important, and how I feel about them. And just kind of give you an update, let you know where things are going to be going in the terms of what's going on in this channel and what you guys will be seeing here, and how I kind of feel about it all. When I thought earlier on about the time that I would come back to running in a Nike shoe again, I thought I would feel happier about it. And right now it's just kind of conflicted and muddled. But I think that it's a good time to kind of try to go forward. So that's what I'm gonna try to do. So that's all I have for today, everybody. Thanks so much for listening again, as always. And hopefully you guys are staying safe on your runs, and I will see you guys in the next one.
Yo, what's going on?